Hi everyone, I'm Lyndall Stout. We have a great show lined up for you today on SUNUP. Hear from our food safety expert about the concerning parasite reported in produce. Then, just in time for planting decisions, the Weed Improvement Team's latest variety trial data is now available. And it's what 4-H'ers around Oklahoma have been looking forward to all year, the annual 4-H State Roundup. Grab that hot cup of coffee because an all-new SUNUP starts right now. We begin this morning with Christi Evans, an OSU Extension food safety specialist and registered dietitian. We're talking about the food safety story that is really dominating the news right now. Kind of get us up to speed and set the stage for our viewers.
Okay, yeah. So cyclospora is a parasite that has been, it's usually found in contaminated water and can be linked to fresh produce. And so there was an outbreak of several states with people that had become sick with, diarrhea. And so it's still being investigated, but there were 5 states that were linked to consumption of iceberg lettuce that was sold at Taco Bell. And where Oklahoma falls into this is that they've also found that some iceberg lettuce was sent to stores, Walmart stores, and Oklahoma was one of those states that received the recalled product. Right now it's being advised that if anybody has that recalled product and was sold under the Market Side brand at Walmart, to avoid that particular iceberg lettuce.
So that's the main thing, but it kind of causes a ripple effect and some fear that this may affect all fruits and vegetables. Or, hey, maybe I just need to stick to my cheeseburger and french fries and Oreos, but we still need our fruits and vegetables.
Right. Yeah, that is a concern. But also, as a registered dietitian, I don't want people to use, this as an excuse to not eat our fruits and vegetables, because our fruits and vegetables are healthy. We need the nutrients from fruits and vegetables to keep our immune systems healthy. So avoiding that would not be, it would not be the good thing to do. At this time, there's advice to not consume that recalled iceberg lettuce, but overall health officials are not asking people at this time to avoid all fruits and vegetables in general.
So when I buy my fruits and vegetables, is it better to get them locally? Is it still okay to get them my usual grocery store? What kind of guidance do you have for people? And then what do I need to do in my own kitchen before I eat them or feed them to my family?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so we do have a global supply chain. And so, where food that we purchase, it might be grown somewhere, then it's put on delivery trucks and maybe processed somewhere else. So there's several links in that chain where food can become contaminated. So when we buy local, we can remove parts of that supply chain, parts of that chain where food might be less contaminated, but it's not going to totally eliminate it. But we can, reduce the risk that it will be. Especially, you buy from a farmer's market, you might be able to get to know a farmer and ask them about what steps they do to reduce the potential contamination. That's one thing that we can do when we purchase foods. But, at home, the important thing is to always wash our fruits and vegetables under clean running water. Before eating them. Things like cucumbers or, tougher skin like melons. It's important to use a vegetable brush to scrub the outside layer of the fruits and vegetables. That can help reduce it. Now with cyclospora, the parasite, it's not going to totally destroy the parasite by washing it underwater, but that can reduce the risk that it will be there. And then also, always wash our hands. It's important to always wash your hands before we eat and before we cook. Also, after eating and after touching food, it's always important to make sure that we have clean hands.
Well, great information. It's very reassuring, Christi, and thanks for staying on top of this for us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
We just want to take a quick break in the show to tell you about OSU Extension's upcoming Small Vegetable Production Systems Field Day. This event will be on August 25th from 9 to 11 at the OSU Student Farm in Stillwater. This event will be a great opportunity to look at ongoing variety trials and cover crop research in certified naturally grown production areas. If you'd like some more information on this event, just scan this QR code at the bottom of your screen.
Talking wheat now, and the decision-making underway by Oklahoma producers as they get their seed lined up in time for fall planting. Today, OSU Extension small grain specialist Dr. Amanda Silva gets us up to speed on the latest OSU wheat variety trials.
Yeah, so it's this time of the year that we wrapped up harvest, and the OSU wheat variety trials harvest results are posted on the wheat website. As we all know, it was a very dry year, very fast and early harvest in comparison to previous years. And still, it was a pretty good year for us to learn about varieties, especially including drought tolerance, in some cases looking at varieties that held up against virus diseases, and in some locations against leaf rust. So we had many issues during the season, and our results are a very good source for farmers to use for variety comparison. You look at the results in southwest Oklahoma, so you're going to see the results for our trials in Altus, in Walters, that includes a dual-purpose wheat system. Also at Apache with an intensive management system. So in that region, you were really going to see the effect of rainfall. As we all expect, very surprising was to see Altus that we were afraid that we weren't going to be able to harvest that trial, but average of that trial was 10 bushels per acre. But you can still see that some varieties yielded way above average for that location and some of the locations in that region. So Apache, average of yield in Apache was 60 bushels per acre, which was also very surprising for the year we had. And as you move to south central Oklahoma, Chickasha, we do that comparison in standard and intensive management. And as we move to our trials in south central Oklahoma, for example, Chickasha, where we have intensive and standard management comparisons, we can see the effect of intensifying management for different varieties. And so the average of our trial for the standard management trial was 58 bushels per acre, and intensive management was 65. And some of the varieties had a much larger response to intensive management, with a response of up to 24 bushels per acre. So if you go in on the website, you can see how varieties differ in their response to management, and you can see how those varieties also did and performed within each management practice. So North Central, also very similar pattern, very surprising yields in some of the locations, and you can see above average yielding varieties, so the ones that really held up well against the drought, especially this year. If you want more information about the OSU wheat variety trials, just go to the SUNUP website and also the wheat website at OSU.
Good morning, everyone. This is State Climatologist Gary McManus with your Mesonet Weather Report. Well, summer has definitely struck. It's that time of the year, late July, early August, when we lose the wind. The temperatures go up, and the dew point also goes up, and that means those heat index values get out of control. Happens every time this part of the year, so this year's nothing different. Let's take a look at some maps and see what we had this week that was so unpleasant. Well, on Tuesday, as you can see from the maximum heat index map from the Mesonet, we did see heat index values above 110 for most of the state. Even up in the Panhandle, we were up around the 105 category, which is not pleasant either. But over in East Oklahoma, things definitely got out of control. You see around Okmulgee, 123, 124, 125. In fact, that 125 at Okmulgee was the 6th highest heat index ever measured by the Mesonet, and those records go back to 1997. So it was a pretty eventful day on Tuesday. If we take a look at that maximum dew point temperature map, same time frame from the Mesonet, we can see the damage done. dew points across eastern Oklahoma, eastern 1/3 or so, basically the eastern half, above 75 and in most cases above 80. And we can see right around there, Okmulgee and those areas, 82, 84, 85. So that was the combination that produced those really nasty heat index values. And I'm afraid after a couple of days of relief, we're right back into it for the weekend and then into next week. So we're going to see this map, the days with the maximum heat index greater than or equal to 110 degrees. We're going to see this map start to populate a little bit more. So again, this time of the year, the end of July, the first part of August, normally the hottest part of the year, and I'm afraid it's going to live up to that billing again in 2026. Okay, to switch categories, let's go to the drought. We take a look at the latest drought monitor map, same basic picture. We just had a few minor changes across the state. We still have much of west central into central Oklahoma, up into the panhandle, mired in that severe to extreme to even exceptional drought. So not a lot of rainfall for those areas, and that's just goes with the territory for this drought here in June and July of 2026. That part of the state just having trouble getting out of that drought. Taking a look at the outlooks for next week, I'm afraid it's not going to happen anytime soon, so probably another week of what we've seen, maybe some occasional showers, but we do see increased odds of above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation for almost the entire state. It does look hot and dry for the next week, so unfortunately probably not a lot of drought relief for western Oklahoma. Let's extend that outlook for August through October, so that 3-month time frame as we're starting to transition from summer into fall. We do see increased odds of above normal temperatures across southern Oklahoma and the panhandle, and maybe a little bit of increased odds in the western panhandle associated with the monsoonal flow of the desert southwest. So not a lot of help in any case for that drought. And that is reflected in the seasonal drought outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. Again, this goes from July 16th through October 31st. It sees the drought where it exists right now in the state to mainly persist, except for the far western panhandle, again in that monsoonal flow, maybe a little bit of help out in that area. I know everybody's saying, where's that help from El Nino? Well, that occurs during the cool season, so later into the fall, through the winter season into early spring. So we're just going to have to get through the next couple of months, and maybe, just maybe, we'll start to see some help from El Nino. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We're joined now by Dr. Todd Hubbs, our OSU Extension crop marketing specialist. And Todd, there's been a rally in the wheat markets. Kind of give us an idea of what's behind it.
Yeah, a huge rally, over 60 cents in the last week, basically on the conflict in the Black Sea escalating. We saw shipping in the Sea of Azov and the Kerch Strait from Russia shut down. Russia was striking ports from Ukraine. This is a major grain corridor for the world. And for that to shut down just put a risk premium inside the wheat market. The wheat market sort of drug the other crop markets up with it. So a massive rally that we needed. I hate it, why it's happening, but it's really good for our Oklahoma producers.
When we look at the futures market, what are you specifically focusing on?
Well, when we look at nearby prices, we're back up to levels we saw after the May WASDE release, which was very bullish for wheat. Nothing like we did when the first Russia-Ukraine conflict kicked off back in 2022. Well below that, but we have a lot bigger stocks in the world because we had big crops last year. There's some issues in the Northern Hemisphere. There's a heat wave in the EU. We're going to see how that turns out for their wheat crop. I'm more concerned about their corn crop than their wheat crop, but you might see some bushels come out of the EU. But when you combine that with what's going on in the Black Sea and crop and goods not moving, it did provide a really good support. Now, how long will it last? That's the big question. There's always workarounds. There's rail. There's ways to get stuff out, and things need to move. Additionally, at these elevated prices, do the world big demanders really come in strong? North Africa and Middle East, we saw them have pretty good crops this year, wheat crops. And so, what's their demand going to look like at these elevated prices? So It's a big question if this will carry through. What I always say, it's probably a good idea to reward rallies because time in the market's extremely difficult.
You have that global map where we can have some really kind of black and white understanding of where the United States fits in with the rest of the world. Talk about that.
Yeah, I just make a price map of the globe from International Grain Council data from last week, just to give an idea of where our HRW price sits relative to our competitors, and that rally put us well above the world. Now we tend to be, due to our quality and where we ship out of, but when you're that elevated with the conflict in the Strait of Hormuz kicking off again, so transportation, are probably going to be elevated. It makes competition tough. Now, if there's nothing coming out of the Black Sea, our competitors look different. But it's still going to be, we need to be not too far away from the global market. And this little rally sort of pushed us higher than most of the world and most of our competitors, significantly higher. So we'll see how it turns out. I'd love to see this rally stick and move forward, but that doesn't tend to happen usually.
Switching gears a little bit, you're also keeping an eye on the corn and milo prices. Discuss those.
Well, I mean, we've seen the corn price, they sort of got lifted with the wheat market move. We're still looking at how the crop's developing, particularly in the heart of the corn belt. We saw a little bit of rally in corn, but you wonder if that's run out somewhat, because right now there's no reason to fade the USDA yield number. I think another shot of moisture through the heart of the corn belt might make that crop. We'll see how it turns out. We're still in the pollination phase for a lot of the corn. Down here in Oklahoma, I think a lot of this dry land corn's been made already. We're already thinking about, dry down. It looks pretty good, I think, for a lot of places in Oklahoma, which is a good idea. And so the price is probably going to have a tough time running up, depending on what happens in the wheat market and other markets in general. So I think right now we're just waiting to see how this crop turns out. Demand's still really strong. Now when we get to milo, the spread between milo and corn, particularly here in Oklahoma, to get closer to parity, we need really strong exports, which means China, because China takes anywhere from 80 to 85% of the world milo imports. And so if we're going to do over 200 million bushels of exports, the vast majority of them are going to China. We've seen our export pace slow down significantly in the milo market recently. I'm probably not going to make USDA's old crop forecast, but it'll be close. The question is, will we do over 200 million next year to bring that gap between the milo and corn price down? It's difficult to say for me because it seems like everything these days is wrapped up in politics and trade negotiations. So the volatility is just really, really high. So I'm hopeful for our milo crop. The conditions aren't great. USDA's yield's probably a little high. We probably will see production come down for milo in the US, but the demand, right? Are we going to move it? So I think it's sort of a wash at this point when I'm looking at it, but I'd love to see some strength. Our basis is really weak in milo, and it has been for quite some time. And it started last year when we got in the trade war with China, and they just stopped buying milo completely, and we've had a tough time recovering.
All right, Todd, great information. We'll continue to watch those wheat prices, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks a lot.
Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. Well, we're to that point in July that I'm always reminded one of the beauties of commercial cow-calf production is there's critical control points through the year where management needs to be pretty intense. That may be preg checking, weaning, the day we vaccinate calves, but those cows are pretty self-sustaining. They still act according to nature. They go out and they turn grass into a weaned calf. But as we reach this point in the year, after some recent rainfall, as we take inventory of things here in the month of July, we talk about some management practices that give us a really good return on investment and just a basic checklist of things to think through. And depending on when we calve, for example, it may be time to get that first round of vaccinations into our calves. Or potentially, if we calved a little bit earlier, it may be time for the second round of vaccinations. If we can get a second round of vaccinations into calves prior to weaning, it really reduces the weaning stress, makes the whole weaning process a lot earlier. What are some other things that give us a great return on investment? Things like growth implants, castration, potential dehorning if we're not using homozygous polled bulls. All those are big ways to capitalize in the marketplace at whatever point that we're going to market those calves later on in the fall or potentially on out to yearlings with respect to some of that stuff. Other things to think about this time of year: heat. We've definitely seen more heat in Oklahoma in the month of July. We have seen some unseasonal moisture as we got into the late part of June and even early parts of July. That could mean different things in different operations. We may need to monitor water supply and make sure the quality of water is good. We may need to monitor shade. If we're going to be working cattle this time of year, we want to make sure we do it really early in the morning. We're dealing with some nights that aren't getting below 70 degrees right now. And when that occurs, it makes it a lot harder for cattle to dissipate heat load overnight. So if we're going to be working with cattle this time of year, we want to be doing it at the crack of dawn and be done with it very early in the morning so that we don't overly heat stress those cattle. Other things to give consideration to: if we haven't put up a hay crop yet, and it's been an interesting summer with respect to, didn't have a lot of intense heat in June, by early July, a lot of those native grass hay meadows still weren't really ready yet in terms of quantity to turn into a hay crop. But if we haven't done that yet, if we're going to do it, it's definitely time to get that hay put up. That sweet spot for native grass hay meadows that's the best trade-off between quality that is typically maximized late May and into June versus quantity that's going to maximize as that grass gets more mature going into the month of August. Ordinarily, we'd say we like to get those hay meadows baled up by the early part of July. This year's been kind of an exception because of the heat pattern, but if we haven't done it yet, it's definitely time to be getting that done. So just a few things to think through as far as management practices, getting a return on investment for that intensive management that we're going to apply in a cow-calf operation, and basically a list to work through. As always, I hope this helps. Really appreciate you joining us on Cow-Calf Corner.
Do you ever get a call in the middle of the night and the highway patrol or your neighbor tells you that your cow or horse are out in the middle of the highway? Not a good call to get. So let's talk just a second about how to latch a gate. And so this is an issue that we deal with a lot here at the university with training students that don't have much experience with this. And I'd be interested to hear your tips on how to latch a gate. But if we've got a metal gate and a chain mechanism and you latch the gate like this, you can see that the tail is available for the animal to access, and especially in confined animals, horses, cattle, what have you, they like to play with the end of that chain, and next thing you know, they've got it unlatched. Instead, all you have to do is take the chain under the gate latch, flip it over toward you, away from the animals, and it's very difficult for them to get that unlatched. That's my tip on how to latch a gate.
Finally today, 4-H members from around Oklahoma spent a few days taking over the OSU campus this past week for the annual and much beloved 4-H State Roundup. Our intern, Grace Wright, put together our story.
So today we're here at the Oklahoma State University campus and we are here attending 4-H Roundup. So here at 4-H Roundup, we have kids from all over the state that are coming here, and they're all 4-H members, so we're able to take different ideas that other 4-H members have during when we have workshops, and then we're going to be able to take those ideas back to our clubs.
I first started the 4-H program at the age of 8, so I've kind of had the full cycle of the program, but I originally came into the program as a pretty quiet and reserved kid, and it might be kind of hard to tell that now, but truthfully, I've gotten out of my comfort zone, and now I've had the opportunity to represent 4-H at the local, county, district, state, and even national level now. I think the biggest thing that it offers is lifelong skills, but it also has a project area meant for everyone, ranging from STEM to livestock showing to robotics. There's projects for everyone in the 4-H program.
So 4-H really opens a lot of opportunities no matter what the kid's interest is. So if it's anywhere between arts, sciences, really anything they have an interest in, we can help them be a professional in that area, giving them a career opportunity in their future, or just have fun with it. So everything they learn leadership-wise or just for fun in 4-H gives them an opportunity in their future.
There's several leadership opportunities we have county officers, local officers, district officers, state officers, and there's also so many trips. It's a lot of fun. We go to DC, you can go to New Mexico. There's just a lot of really cool trips, and I truly think that you will find your people, you will find your family, because that's where I found my family.
I'm most excited for our workshops. Also about to hear some state officer speeches here in a little bit, and we're gonna elect a new state officer team soon, so I'm super excited for that.
So I'm most excited for Roundup because I get to see a lot of old friends, a lot of people that I've grown up in 4-H with. It'll be my last time here, so I'm just excited to see everybody. I have a lot of memories from Roundup. You know, I've met most of my friends at Roundup. Honestly, since I got into the Innovator program, this Roundup is just, I don't know, it's been a lot more fun to me. So,
don't be afraid to take a chance, because the truth is, guys, I honestly wouldn't be in the position that I am today without taking that chance. And all it took was a few words of encouragement from some of my fellow 4-H people.
That'll do it for our show this week. A reminder, you can see SUNUP anytime on our website, follow us on social media, and be sure to subscribe to SUNUP on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SUNUPTV. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.